Across the aisle segment tonight. Don't look now, but the Democratic Party has an anti-Semitism problem. Just weeks after the Chicago Dyke March kicked out their own supporters for having a Star of David pride flag, the group's official Twitter account started using anti-Semitic terms popularized by Nazis. So, will Democrats denounce this? With me now, professor and author of Obama's America, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, good to see you.
Always good to be here, Liz.
All right, Ian, I want to start out by showing this short video. This is actually of the Dyke March in Chicago. By the way, that's their official name for their march, the Dyke March. You can see the Star of David pride flag in this video. Take a look. Now, of course, we covered this story on the show. We know that those marchers carrying that rainbow flag with the Star of David, they were ejected from the march. They were told they were not welcome there, that it was an anti-Zionist type of march. Ian, let me ask you, I mean, do you condemn this? This march was supposed to be a march of tolerance and acceptance, and they ejected people just for carrying a Star of David flag.
Well, I find what happened at that march to be reprehensible. That's not something that I consider inclusive or tolerant. I think if you're going to criticize the policy of the government of Israel, I think that's certainly a legitimate thing to do. But to prevent people from expressing their identity as being both gay and Jewish, and that was a flag of the Jewish star, not even a flag of Israel, I think that's really disgusting. And it also singles out Jews in Israel. As far as I know, there's no policy in this march preventing people from expressing their Chinese identity. China has a horrific occupation, violent occupation of Tibet. There's not a lot of bloodshed right now because the Tibetans know that if they lift a finger, the Chinese government will shed even more blood. So I do think they're singling out Jews here, and I find that it unacceptable.
Good. I mean, we agree 100% on this. It shocks me, though, that more Democrats like yourself aren't speaking up about this. And I mean, I did some research on this, and it seems to me that there is a concern, at least, that there is this undercurrent of anti-Semitism that is creeping into some of the major movements within the Democratic Party. It's not just this march. I mean, we have Linda Sarsour of the Women's March. It's supposed to be about women's rights. It's not supposed to be about Israel and the Palestinians and the conflict there. We have her saying that Zionism, anyone who stands up for Israel, is not welcome in the feminist movement. Does that bother you as a liberal, that this undercurrent of anti-Semitism is creeping into the liberal platform?
Well, here's what I would say. Linda Sarsour is one person. Certainly the Dyke March is not the Democratic Party, and Linda Sarsour is not the Democratic Party either. I can't tell you exactly how many people have spoken out against Linda Sarsour. I find her remarks to be reprehensible. Of course, I'm not the Democratic Party. I'm a professor and an author, and that's that's something very different from being a professional political person. But having said that, I think we've got to hold both sides to the same standard. Linda Sarsour is, in the big picture, a very, very small player. The Republican Party nominated Donald Trump for president after he... Wait, no, you got to let me go.
Finish what you're saying, and then I want to come back to this, because I've heard this argument 100 times.
Okay. Okay, but it's very important, because if you're going to ask Democrats to do something, you have to ask Republicans to do the same thing. Donald Trump spent years as the birther-in-chief, spreading the biggest racist lie in modern political history. He announced for president calling Mexican immigrants drug dealers and rapists.
He did
say
not
all of them were, but that's fine.
That's a Democratic narrative.
He said not all of them were.
No, he did not.
I've read the speech. He said not all of them were. Some were good people.
People who are rapists over here, which is true. It's factually true. Look at the Department of Justice statistics here, and you'll know it's true. But I want to go back to that point you made. You said Linda Sarsour is an individual, and the person that is organizing the Dyke March is an individual. That, of course, is true. We don't have a capacity, unless we're an elected official, to speak for more than just ourselves. That is fine. But these are the leaders of the movements within the Democratic Party. That's why they're called movements. The Women's March is an organized movement. It is not simply a loose group that has no leadership. Linda Sarsour organized the millions of women who marched on Washington after the election of Donald Trump. She does, in a sense, speak for modern feminism. That's how spokespeople work. They become leaders of their movement. Just like you have issues with leaders of the Republican movement who aren't elected officials, they do de facto lead the party. And that's what I'm saying. We have Linda Sarsour. We have, we have this example in Chicago of this march. We also have Keith Ellison. He is an official part of the Democratic Party. He's the deputy chair of the Democratic Party. In his past, he's praised Louis Farrakhan, perhaps one of the most anti-Semitic modern figures in our nation right now. So rabidly anti-Semitic. I mean, does that not bother you? Is he not considered a leader of the party?
I have to tell you, when Republicans denounce Donald Trump, that's when I'll be more concerned. Or at least that's when I'll demand Democrats do some of the same things. I don't like everything Keith Ellison has said. I don't like everything that many people have had to say. But at the end of the day, right now, the Democratic Party is supported by the vast majority of Jews. Jews know what's best for Jews. Jews know what's anti-Semitic and what's not. If Jews felt that the Democratic Party was an anti-Semitic party, they would not be voting 75% in the last election for Hillary Clinton and more than that for Barack Obama in elections before that. I'll leave it up to them to make that decision for themselves, but we really need to hold both sides to the same standard.
I want to ask you, that's why I have you on the show. I mean, do you consider the fact that those 3 lesbians were ejected from the Dyke March because of the Star of David pride flag? I mean, do you consider that to be anti-Semitism?
Oh, absolutely. I already told you I agreed with that. I think they singled out Israel. They singled out Jews. Look,
and I want to go through these issues, though. Do you agree? Do you agree that Linda Sarsour saying that if you're pro-Israel, you have no place in feminism? I mean, do you agree that that's anti-Semitic?
I think it's wrong. I need to know more about her motivations there, but it's certainly bigoted. Anti-Semitism is a tricky word there, but it certainly has the potential to be seen as anti-Semitic, and I wouldn't rule out calling her that. But either way, she's just wrong.
Right, she is wrong. And that brings us to our third answer. I mean, Keith Ellison calling Louis Farrakhan, a role model, a quote-unquote role model for black youth after Louis Farrakhan has said unspeakable things about the Jewish people. Do you not consider that to be anti-Semitic?
Well, I've looked into some of the things that Keith Ellison has said. I don't remember off the top of my head the context of that remark. I found that he has walked back some of the things that he says. He is not the person who I think is the best spokesman for the Democratic Party or really represents the Democratic Party on Israel. I think that you've got a lot of people in both parties who have said some hateful things. And like I said, I'd like to see both parties held to the same standard, both movements held to the same standard.
So would I.
Donald Trump is president, and he has said some things that are hateful.
Right, hateful. But no, he also, I mean, you're not holding it to the same standard even within this conversation. Keith Ellison he insinuated that 9/11 was an inside job. The U.S. government did that to their own people, and then he walked it back, and that's okay with you because he walked it back, and he walked back his support of an anti-Semitic preacher, a black nationalist preacher. Yet Donald Trump, when he made those comments about birtherism, which, by the way, most of the Republican Party condemned, he later walked that back, but now you don't just forgive him for that, you claim that he's hateful. That's not the same standard.
He spoke for years about it. He made it his #1 issue. This is not Keith Ellison's #1 issue. And Keith Ellison is not the leader of the Democratic Party. He
literally is the leader of the Democratic Party. He is the deputy chair of the Democratic Party.
Well, no. Donald Trump was nominated by millions of Republicans. Keith Ellison came in second in a race where a few hundred people voted. Look, there's a big difference there. There is a big difference there.
Right, there's a difference between the president of the United States, but he is a leader of the Democratic Party. Ian, I appreciate...